Forgiveness, it's one of the most praised virtues in human history. We're taught that forgiving others sets us free, that it heals wounds, mends hearts, and brings peace. Religious texts, moral teachings, and even psychology tell us that forgiveness is a sign of strength, the ability to rise above pain and release resentment. But what if there's another side to it? What if forgiveness isn't always good? What if sometimes forgiveness becomes a weapon, a disguise, or even a chain that keeps us trapped in the very pain we're trying to escape? Have you ever forgiven someone and still felt broken afterward? When we talk about forgiveness, we often imagine it as light overcoming darkness. But the truth is, the act of forgiving is far more complicated. It's not just a single decision. It's a battle between emotion and morality, between self-protection and compassion. Sometimes we forgive not because we truly want to, but because we feel we have to. Society tells us that holding on to anger is wrong, that good people forgive, that peace can only come through letting go. But what happens when forgiveness becomes a kind of pressure, when we're made to forgive before we've even healed? This is where the dark side begins, because not all forgiveness leads to freedom. Sometimes it leads to silence, to self-blame, to accepting pain we never deserved. People often say, forgive and forget. But how do you forget something that shaped who you are? How do you erase memories that still ache in the middle of the night? Some wounds don't close simply because we decide to forgive. They linger quietly, like shadows behind our smiles. Forgiveness can sometimes become a mask, a way to hide unresolved pain behind the illusion of peace. Have you ever told someone, "I forgive you," just to move on, even when your heart still felt heavy? Maybe you didn't want to seem weak or bitter. Maybe you thought forgiving meant being mature, but deep down, you knew you weren't ready. That's the paradox. Forgiveness can look like healing, even when it's just suppression. We bury the hurt, we label it as closure, and we try to convince ourselves that it's gone. But emotions don't disappear just because we name them differently. The brain remembers, the body remembers. Even when we tell ourselves we've forgiven, our nervous system might still react with fear, anger, or pain. The person who hurt us might have moved on, but the part of us that suffered still lingers in that moment, replaying it in silence. And yet, we're told that to truly heal, we must forgive. So we rush the process. We skip the part where we're supposed to grieve, to rage, to understand what really happened. We leap straight to forgiveness, not out of freedom, but out of fear. Fear of appearing bitter, fear of confrontation, fear of facing the truth. But here's the uncomfortable question. Who really benefits from forgiveness? Is it always for the victim, or does it sometimes protect the wrongdoer? When society tells us to forgive quickly, it often ignores the reality of power. It ignores that forgiveness can sometimes shield abusers, manipulators, and those who never take responsibility for their actions. In families, in relationships, even in institutions, forgiveness is sometimes used to silence justice, to keep the peace on the surface while corruption thrives underneath. Think about it. How many times have people said, "Just forgive them, they didn't mean it," when harm was real? How often do we tell survivors to move on, while the one who caused the pain walks away untouched? Forgiveness can be twisted into a tool of control, a way to maintain appearances, to protect reputations, or to preserve systems that thrive on silence. It tells the hurt to be quiet and calls it healing. That's not forgiveness. That's emotional manipulation disguised as morality. But it goes deeper than that. Sometimes we forgive not because we're told to, but because we're addicted to the hope of change. We think that if we forgive someone, they'll finally understand our pain, that our compassion will transform them. So we forgive again and again, waiting for a miracle that never comes. We confuse forgiveness with tolerance, with endurance, with self-sacrifice. And slowly, we begin to lose parts of ourselves. Our boundaries blur. Our pain becomes normalized. We start to believe that love means endless forgiveness, that compassion means letting people hurt us without consequence. But is that really love? Or is it fear? Fear of letting go, fear of being alone, fear of accepting that some people will never be sorry. Sometimes we use forgiveness to hold on when what we really need is to walk away, because forgiveness, when forced, doesn't heal. It corrodes. It teaches us to betray ourselves in the name of peace, to swallow our truth just to make others comfortable. Yet there's another layer to this darkness: the way we forgive ourselves. How often do we pretend to forgive ourselves but still carry guilt deep within? The things we've done, the words we wish we could take back, the moments we can't undo. They sit in the corners of our mind, whispering that we don't deserve peace. We tell ourselves we've moved on, but the shame still lives there, quietly shaping our decisions. Sometimes forgiving ourselves feels harder than forgiving anyone else, because we know our own intentions and we judge them more harshly than anyone ever could. And then there's the paradox, the fear that if we truly forgive ourselves, we might lose accountability. That forgiveness means excusing our actions. But real forgiveness isn't about denial. It's about understanding. It's about saying, I was human, I was flawed, and I will do better. Yet many people never reach that point because guilt becomes their punishment. And sometimes they mistake punishment for redemption. But let's step back for a moment and ask, what is forgiveness really? Is it letting go of anger? Is it releasing someone from blame? Or is it freeing ourselves from the emotional prison that pain creates? Maybe forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing, but about choosing peace over poison. Still, peace shouldn't come at the cost of truth. True forgiveness requires acknowledgement of what happened, of who was hurt and why. Without that honesty, forgiveness becomes empty words, a performance for others rather than healing for ourselves. Imagine a person who keeps forgiving their abuser because they believe it makes them morally superior. They feel powerful in their compassion, but in reality, they're still trapped. Forgiveness without justice or accountability becomes self-deception. It gives the illusion of strength while silently breaking the spirit. This is the hidden danger. Forgiveness can sometimes keep people stuck in cycles of harm, because if we forgive too soon, we teach the wrong lesson. That pain has no consequence. But forgiveness also interacts with memory in fascinating ways. The brain doesn't erase what's forgiven. It reinterprets it. It changes the emotional meaning of the memory. But if forgiveness happens prematurely, before the emotions are processed, the brain stores that pain as unfinished business. It becomes emotional residue, a quiet heaviness we can't name. We may move forward in life, but certain moments, certain faces, certain words will still trigger something deep within. That's the shadow of unresolved forgiveness. So, should we forgive at all? Should we hold on to resentment instead? The answer isn't simple, because forgiveness, when genuine, can indeed be liberating. It can release us from cycles of hatred that consume our energy, but it has to come naturally, not as an obligation. True forgiveness isn't forced, it's discovered. It's something that arises after understanding, after anger, after grief, after acceptance. Forgiveness should be the final step of healing, not the first. But most of us skip that process because we're uncomfortable with pain. We want closure fast. We want to move on. But healing isn't linear, and forgiveness that comes before understanding is just avoidance wearing a halo. We think we've found peace, but all we've done is postpone pain. Sooner or later, it resurfaces, sometimes in the form of anxiety, mistrust, or emotional numbness. Because the mind doesn't forget what the heart hasn't processed. Let's ask a deeper question. Why do we feel the need to forgive at all? Is it purely moral, or is it psychological, a way to regain a sense of control? When we forgive, we shift from victim to survivor. We reclaim power over our narrative. But if that forgiveness is given out of fear, guilt, or pressure, then it's not empowerment, it's surrender. True forgiveness should feel like liberation, not obligation. It should expand your sense of self, not diminish it. So maybe the dark side of forgiveness isn't that it's bad, but that it's misunderstood. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean letting people back into your life. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. Sometimes the most powerful act of forgiveness is walking away and saying, "You no longer have power over me." That's what real peace looks like, not erasing the past, but refusing to let it define your future. But why is this truth so hard to accept? Maybe because we live in a world that glorifies moral perfection. We admire those who forgive publicly, who show compassion no matter the cost. But no one talks about the private aftermath, the sleepless nights, the emotional exhaustion, the quiet resentment that lingers behind the curtain of forgiveness. We see forgiveness as a public virtue, but true forgiveness is deeply personal. It's not a performance, it's a process. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not forgive right away. Sometimes it's okay to be angry, to feel betrayed, to admit that what happened to you was unfair, because only when we fully feel the depth of our pain can we begin to release it. Forgiveness that skips over pain isn't healing, it's denial. So, what would happen if we stopped forcing forgiveness and started allowing it to happen naturally? What if we told people that it's okay not to forgive until they're ready? That forgiveness isn't the finish line of healing. It's just one possible step along the way. What if we gave ourselves permission to hold space for both, compassion and pain, empathy and anger? Forgiveness isn't about being good, it's about being whole. And wholeness includes every part of us, the kind, the hurt, the angry, and the healing. The dark side of forgiveness appears when we forget that, when we forgive to meet expectations instead of emotions, when we prioritize peace over truth, when we silence our pain in order to look strong. So next time someone tells you to forgive, pause, ask yourself, am I ready? Do I understand what I'm forgiving? Am I doing this for me or for them? Because forgiveness without awareness is just another form of self-betrayal. Forgiveness can be beautiful, but only when it's real. It can set you free, but only when you've faced the chains that hold you. Don't rush your healing for the comfort of others. Don't confuse forgiveness with weakness or resentment with evil. Both have their purpose. Both teach you something about who you are. So I'll ask you one final question. What does forgiveness mean to you? Is it freedom, or is it a cage built from expectations? Because sometimes the truest act of forgiveness is simply allowing yourself the time to feel everything before you ever decide to let it go.